Hello and welcome to Antinatalism this week. We start with three antinatalism outreach events. There was one in Edinburgh, Scotland by Ola, who by the way is a consistent donor to this channel. Here we can see her holding antinatalist placards along with another colleague, and here's what she had to say about her experience.
This was the first time that either of us did antinatalist outreach in Edinburgh. We were both pleasantly surprised. We got a few hecklers and plenty of skeptics, as you'd expect, but we also had a lot of good conversations with people who found the idea surprising or interesting or even crazy but wanted to find out more. Quite a few of them already knew the term antinatalism. We even met one antinatalist. We picked our second spot in the Royal Mile, so we were approached by many tourists and even more took pictures of the signs. All in all, not a bad afternoon.
And then in London, we had Lawrence doing outreach at the Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. He seems to have some meaningful discussions about having children, and there are some videos of it scheduled to be released in the coming week. So, looking forward to those. From the UK to Japan, Antinatalism Japan had their 24th outreach, this time in Tokyo at a train station. Here you can see placards both in English and Japanese language. Now, just a reminder that Antinatalist Advocacy Conference is happening on 29th and 30th of November. We already went through the list of speakers and schedule the last time, but one more update is that they are running a fundraiser along with the conference. This is for MSI Reproductive Choices, which provides personalized contraception and safe abortion services to women and girls. A donation of £10 can prevent an unintended pregnancy. £20 can avert an unsafe abortion. The Economic Times is a big newspaper in India. It generally deals with financial news, but there was a very short article, Why Have Children?, talking about antinatalism on a very high level. Although the article is short and ends on a note that procreation is a personal choice, it quotes David Benatar with reference to his better never to have been. Given the readership of this paper, this I thought was a big deal. Antinatalism and the Soteriological Problem of Reproduction is an article in Philosophy and Theology by Kevin R. West. The word soteriological refers to the concept of God saving humans for their sins. Looking at the abstract, Kevin argues by combining the problem of evil, that is, there being a lot of evil in the world, with antinatalism. Antinatalist logic can be combined with the soteriological problem of evil to produce the soteriological problem of reproduction. The possibility of ending up in eternal hell makes it better not to have been born. Now, I've not been able to access the full paper, so I don't know the details, but if you happen to have it, please let me know. Eunatalism is a topic of a Substack article which takes a very controversial position on fertility rates and reproduction. We value reproduction on two levels. On individual level, we want to reproduce and have children. On a collective level, we want to advance our civilization. These values are given an almost axiomatic status here. If both values have to be respected, then we have to have a stable population. Too much population will cause resource crunch and will not be beneficial on a collective level. Underpopulation can leave many individuals deprived of having children and harm them on individual level. The author, Blithering Genius, proposes a eugenic solution to this problem. They define eugenics as the selection for individual traits that are collectively beneficial. So what kind of traits? Beauty? Intelligence? Now, these are not particularly beneficial on a collective level. Instead, it is the parent's productivity which should be selected. Productive and responsible people should have more children than unproductive or irresponsible people. For example, it is eugenic to prevent people on welfare from having children because they are unproductive. Likewise, it is eugenic to prevent serious criminals from having children because they are socially destructive. This way, individual values are in alignment with collective values. There would be permits for reproduction. Only people with sufficient income to support a child and meet their social obligations, like pay taxes for example, would qualify for a reproduction permit. Serious criminals would not qualify for a permit. This eugenically motivated natalism is Eunatalism. The article then addresses many criticisms, but not sufficiently in my opinion. For example, how would this increase fertility rates in countries where it is below replacement level? The article proposes that we should change our cultural values, but that is something which many progressive pronatalists have argued for anyway. It is not clear how such a change is achieved by Eunatalism. There are many practical and ethical pitfalls to this solution. I won't go in each of them, but one big problem is the lack of consideration for the child who is brought into existence. Let's say you allow people with good income to have n number of children. That number n could be proportional to income levels of parents. But income levels are not permanent, nor are they accurate indicators of productivity or welfare. It is also not clear what being productive exactly means in these cases. The author takes simplistic examples of welfare moms to differentiate between productive and non productive individuals. But the real world is not so binary. Most of us live productive and destructive lives at the same time. We might be doing something good, but we are also causing lot of harms. Misanthropic arguments for antinatalism make it easy to see how that is. Anyway, this was a glimpse of how an article which promises a radical pronatalist solution still suffers from the same basic flaws that antinatalism has already exposed. A new analysis suggests that some developing countries have unexpectedly large numbers of child-free people. Zachary Neal and Jennifer Neal of Michigan State University present these findings in the open access journal PLOS 1. Fertility rates are declining globally, bringing increased attention to child-free people. Research on child-free people in wealthy countries suggests that their prevalence is large and growing. However, few studies have focused on child-free people in the developing world. To address this gap, the authors designed and employed a new software for analyzing data from developing countries. The software is specifically tailored for data from Demographic and Health Service DHS program, which is a collaboration between the US and local partners with primary goal of collecting fertility data. Using the new software, the researchers analyzed DHS data collected between 2014 and 2023 of more than 2 million people, including 37,000 child-free people in 51 developing countries. They found that prevalence of child-free people varied substantially between countries, even within the same region. For instance, among single women aged 15 to 29 in Southeast Asia, an estimated 7.3% in Philippines were child-free, compared to 0.4% in Indonesia. Among the 51 countries, Papua New Guinea had the highest prevalence of child-free single women aged 15 to 29 at 15.6%, while Liberia had the lowest at 0.3%. There's also a strong link between countries' prevalence of child-free people and its level of human development, which is related to health, education, and standard of living. Countries scoring lower on the Human Development Index, such as Chad, had child-free rates of about 1%, while higher human development countries, such as Turkey, had higher rates of around 6%. Gender equality and political freedom were also associated with child-free prevalence, albeit to a lesser extent. These findings suggest that the choice to be child-free is not restricted to wealthy countries. Now, there were so many antinatalist videos in the last 2 weeks that I could not watch them all. Still, here are some of them worth mentioning. Philosophy Tube is a big channel with over 1.6 million subscribers. They made a video talking about birth rates and aging population. We have all heard the pronatalists warning us about economy, population collapse, and other such apocalyptic ideas. The video calls this a moral panic and points out some mistakes in it. One is the fear of human extinction. Low birth rates won't cause extinction unless it goes to zero, which is highly unlikely. And even if it does, theoretically speaking, it won't be bad, as there would be no one left who would be harmed. And we are only talking about humans here. Another mistake they tend to do is focus only on demographics and blame aging populations disproportionately. Old people are also productive, and there are many young people like students and children who are not. Also, old people are subject to ageist stereotypes and are dehumanized in pronatalist rhetoric. Fear of low birth rates is not new though. British Parliament has been talking about this since 1920s, so we are not learning from the history. This blown up fear of risks of underpopulation is similar to the fear of risks of overpopulation, which never realized. Finally, the video points out that we don't need more people to sustain the economy. We need a sustainable economy for people to have more children. So then the question is, should people have children to start with? Is it even ethical? That is the topic of the next episode on this channel. Right now, it is on their Nebula channel, available only for paid subscribers. I don't have a paid subscription, so we'll have to wait for it to come on YouTube. Arthur Schopenhauer, The Life and Thoughts of Philosophy's Greatest Pessimist, is a new book by David Bather Woods. It will be published on 18th November and is already available to pre-order on major sites like Amazon. Now, as the title says, this is a biography of Schopenhauer, and so by its nature involves pessimism. This is not directly on antinatalism, but still would be interesting for anyone curious in this area. And David was also interviewed on a YouTube channel called The Dissenter on this topic. They discuss Schopenhauer's psychology, philosophy, his views on solitude, suicide, marriage, love, women, ethics, politics, death, and so on. Very interesting content, and looking forward to yet another book on my to read list. There was an hour and a half long interview of Mohana Setu and Sumit from Bengali Antinatalist group on the topic of antinatalism in general and in Bengali language. It is on a channel called Tita TV, which has more than 55,000 subscribers. And even though the interview is in Bengali, auto translated English subtitles are available. Lawrence made a video, The Invisible Ideology Making You Have Kids. That ideology being natalism. In the video, Lawrence explains what natalism means, the core beliefs on natalism, why procreation is a moral issue, the myths or justifications that natalists use to justify having children, how natalism causes distorted thinking, support for this thinking in institutions like government, religion, corporates, and so on. And he also covers the cultural and biological origins of natalism and why we should question it. It's a long video, but densely packed with information. If you are an antinatalist, then this is a must watch because you should know what you're against. And if you're not an antinatalist, then there is even more compelling reason for you to watch this because it will make you aware of the ideology you have been victim of without even knowing about it. And Lawrence also interviewed Laura Carroll. Laura comes more from a child-free background than antinatalism. She has written about 8 books so far around the subject, but there are many common grounds between antinatalism and child-free. For example, the opposition to pronatalism, societal attitudes towards procreation, and so on. That was the main area of exploration in this interview. They talk about the biases that are present in us and in the society at large, the effects of declining birth rates, the so-called resurgence of pronatalism, the global picture of child-free movement, and also Laura's future projects. And those were some of the stories about antinatalism this week. Thanks for watching and see you next time.